I am one who is never, ever going to kiss my son on the lips. But Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, they are the test. They are the barometer in the NFL. Now, of course, the Eagles, they were the top dogs in 2017. Last year, went back to New England. This year, we'll see what happens. It's time to turn the goat into goat cheese. Mike Skolsky, not Mike Skolsky today. Actually, that's Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew making a special guest appearance today, as is Brennan Albert. They're both here. We're here to talk about it. Eagles, Patriots this Sunday.
It's not how you start; it's how you finish. It's not always the best regular season team. It's whoever gets hot at the right time. I mean, you saw the Giants win the Super Bowl when they were 8-8 and they beat the undefeated Patriots. It's all about getting hot at the right time, and it's a fresh start. We're tied for first place, so we got a couple big games coming up, and it's pretty much like a fresh start for us, I think.
Coming out of that bye week, I mean, you can't ask for a better time to get a bye week, especially coming up for this opponent. I mean, if you asked any Eagles fans, hey, here's the list of teams you're going to play this season, who do you want the bye week before? I think everyone would say the Patriots. So it's a great situation for the Eagles. It's as good of a time as you're ever going to get to play New England right after a bye week.
Yeah, so we'll just quickly get into last week because the Cowboys, they lost. So the Eagles don't play a game. They move up in the standings. They are now tied with the Cowboys atop the NFC East. And when you look at the schedules down the stretch, all right, so Eagles, they got Patriots, then they got Seattle. After that, it's not too difficult. It's not too bad. But when you look at Dallas's slate, 4 of their last 7 are on the road. The Eagles' difficult games are at home, whereas the Cowboys are away from AT&T Stadium. So Cowboys are going to have a little bit more difficult. So the fact that they lost on Sunday night, I think the Eagles are now in the driver's seat of the NFC East. Have you guys looked at the schedules and all that?
Oh, if you look at the Cowboys, it's interesting that they haven't really beat – probably the most impressive team that they beat is the Eagles. And I'm not even 100% sure what we have with the Eagles yet. So, I mean, they beat –
We're going to find out in the next
we're going to find out in the next few weeks. But, I mean, they beat the Giants twice. They beat the Redskins. I mean, they beat the Dolphins. It's not very – they don't really have any impressive wins yet. Like, we beat the Packers. We beat the Bears have a great defense. We beat the Bills, who are good defense as well. I mean, NFC East is wide open. And like you said, we have 2 tough games. And then you look at the back half of our schedule. Besides the Cowboys, we have games that we should win. So I think, Cowboys had the easier first half of the season schedule. I think we definitely have the easier second half.
Totally agree. And I think it's so important that the Cowboys lost that game to the Vikings this past week, because next week the Cowboys probably are going to get right. Realistically, they're playing the Lions. So even the biggest Eagles and Cowboys hater, I think, would admit, yeah, that should be a win. But then they get the Patriots. So that's not an easy game. Meanwhile, the Eagles here, coming off a bye, they get the Patriots and they get the Seahawks. The reality is here, fellas, is if the Eagles split, let's say worst case scenario, which I think this is a very realistic worst case scenario, they split Patriots Seahawks, they're still ahead in the driver's seat here moving forward with the Cowboys. And then look at the rest of the Eagles schedule: Dolphins, Giants, Washington. Very, very winnable. And then you have a split game, because I think they're going to end up beating the Cowboys in the second to final week of the season. Meanwhile, Dallas, they still have the Rams. I think the Bears defensively can do more, and it's in Chicago, so that always plays a little bit better. So, Adrian, you nailed it. The schedule shapes up very favorably for the Eagles moving forward, and a little harsher for Dallas.
But at the end of the day, as we all probably know, the game and the NFC East is probably going to come down to Week 16 when the Eagles play the Cowboys. So you're going to have them at home. You got to take care of business. All right, let's get on to the Patriots and these next 2 games in general, because there's nobody besides the Patriots and the Seahawks who have a better record in November and December since 2012 than these 2 teams. And of course, the calendar has flipped to November. So the Eagles are getting these teams when, they actually make their ascent. So we'll see how things play out. Now, the other thing that happened, the Ravens ran all over the Patriots. And I kind of wish that didn't happen, because it happened right before the bye week. And that was something that I thought the Patriots were a little bit susceptible to all season long. Now, the fact was they were getting off to these hot starts and nobody was able to run the ball on them, so because they were playing from behind. But the Ravens were actually able to keep it close. Obviously went ahead big time, so able to keep the ball running. And the Patriots right now are tied for 6th worst in yards per carry allowed at 4.7. And that was also the number of the Seahawks prior to Monday night's game. So these are two matchups. The Eagles right now really running the ball well, and two defenses that are not particular stopping the run, although the Seattle Seahawks did do it on Monday night.
I think you said it great. I mean, with our personnel, especially with Deshaun out, we're going to be running a lot of 12, which gears very well towards the run. You kind of hit on it that the Ravens kind of exposed them a little bit. We talked about how easy the first half of the schedule was for the Cowboys. You look at the Patriots, it might have been easier. I mean, that was the whole thing we were talking about. Whenever we're talking about the Patriots, like they haven't really played anybody, and the Ravens is going to be the real test. The Ravens just smacked them right in the mouth. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Like you said, I don't know if that's bad that happened to them right before a bye before they play us. You know, maybe ground them a little bit, and that might make it a little tougher for us. But or maybe the Ravens exposed them a little bit. I guess we'll find out. But one thing I know for sure is Doug Peterson isn't as scared to go up against Bill Belichick. Sometimes coaches seem to like to get in their own heads. You pretty much just got to stick to your philosophy. A lot of times you see people kind of getting in their own head against him. You know, you saw that in the Super Bowl, 28-3, Marshawn Lynch, all that type of stuff. So, I mean, it should be an interesting test for both teams, I think, this week.
Without a question here. And Adrian, I love the stat you dropped there, talking a little bit about the record in November for New England. Well, the reality is here, fellas, as long as they're in the NFC East, they got 6 wins on the book. So,
you know, they have 3 additional, all those additional bye weeks during the season. It's not fair. Not fair.
Now that said, I don't think any of us would be stupid enough to say that means New England's overrated, because as long as Bill Belichick's in his hoodie, everything is going well there for the Patriots. So I don't want to try to rip them. But you're right, guys, you're right. Look, New England, look at where they invested their money in their team. It's in the defensive backfield. So naturally what's going to happen in the front 7, you're a little bit lighter. So you go into a team like Baltimore, who is the best rushing team in the NFL, and that's why they're able to run on them. Now, can the Eagles be successful in the run? Sure. But I don't think, fellas, there's any team that can be as successful as Baltimore in the running game. Why? Because they actually have a quarterback who's a legit threat to run the ball. You know, you're not going to see Carson Wentz running the ball. And if you do, you're praying it's not for long if you're any smart as an Eagles fan realistically here, right? So I don't think necessarily the Eagles are going to be able to rush for all the yards the Ravens did, but that doesn't necessarily mean they still won't have some success.
It's running the football for the Eagles is about putting them into manageable third down situations.
Correct.
Because they're about being slow, methodical, and converting on those third downs. Now, you brought up an interesting statement, because you were saying that, you know, nobody really thinks the Patriots are overrated. Well, I do think they're overrated, but they are still the best team in the NFL, if that makes any sense. The reason why I think they're overrated was all the people who were talking about their defense being one of the best of all time, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous, considering they didn't play anybody, and their run defense really wasn't that great when you really looked at it. I mean, the yards per game was top 5 in the NFL, but the yards per carry has always been low, and it was pretty bad last year as well. So I think they're overrated by the public, because they look at them as the big, bad 8-1 Patriots, when in reality they really haven't played anybody to really challenge their defense besides the Ravens. That's the way I kind of look at them right now. But still a very good team and might win the Super Bowl again.
I mean, as a fantasy owner, the Patriots defense was one of the best pickups I've had all season. They were, I think, for a while they were.
Did you pick them up in free agency or
free agency? Yeah,
wow.
I mean, you're talking about they were getting like Christian McCaffrey points for a little bit there. But I mean, they needed that, because Tom Brady. I mean, their offense hasn't been as explosive as it normally is. I mean, obviously, don't ever count out Tom Brady. I mean, he's had slow starts the season before, and he seems to be the ageless wonder. But I mean, he hasn't been that dominant. Like, if you look at his numbers comparatively to past seasons, I don't think he's really, he hasn't looked like the GOAT. He's been obviously very good, but you can see that they've been struggling with weapons. Obviously, they made a nice move for Mohamed Sanu, but I mean, they haven't been. He has been picking apart teams like you normally see. You saw him struggle a lot with the Ravens defense. Obviously, it's one of the better deep secondaries in the NFL, but I mean, it's not the same, scary Tom Brady so far this year. I mean, obviously, I said, like, don't ever count him out, but so far what we've seen, it hasn't been that big bad Tom Brady that we're used to.
Yeah, I mean, as my good friend Tom Selleck just said, that you can't discount Brady ever. I mean, look, there's a reason they brought in Antonio Brown. There's a reason they brought in Sanu. It's because they knew offensively they still needed a couple more pieces here. But you know what? Brady's the guy that he'll give you death by 1,000 paper cuts. He probably isn't always going to be as aggressive. This year, I will say though, fellas, from watching the Pats, they've been far more aggressive than I've seen in recent years with Brady. And it kind of surprises me, to be honest with you, because again, they don't really have a great vertical threat. I mean, the three vertical threats that they have was Josh Gordon, who's no longer on the team, Antonio Brown, who's no longer on the team, and then they brought in Sanu, who's kind of still up and coming, had a great opening week for his first game. But I'm going to push back a little bit on this notion they didn't beat anyone. Maybe it's week one, and maybe the team just didn't look good. But I think all three of us were actually a little more confident what the Steelers should have been. Now, obviously, with the Big Ben injury, that team is completely different now, but they put a whooping to Pittsburgh in week one. So I do think we got to give them a little credit there. If you want to tell me the Steelers aren't good, that's fine. I will understand that. But they're not playing the Dolphins all 6 weeks here. I think that Steelers game is a little more telling than we want to give them credit for.
Yeah, I guess my point is like they might go 14-2, 13-3. And if they win the Super Bowl, I wouldn't consider them to be one of the greatest teams of all time.
Sure.
I would say, that's kind of my argument. I wouldn't even say they're a top 3 Patriots team of the dynasty. So, that's kind of how I feel. And the running game, before we get back to Tom Brady, I love the fact that they were able to run the ball and control the line of scrimmage against the Bears. This is the Bears, a top 3 run defense, one of the best run defenses, easy for me to say, best run defenses in the NFL. There it is. Easy for me to say. All right, so Tom Brady, I'm going to run down the stats real quick since we kind of talked about him a little bit before we get into him a little bit further here. So he's got 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So he's on pace to throw for less than 30 for it would be the 3rd time in 4 years. Before that, he had thrown for 30 plus in 5 of 6. So the numbers are dwindling a little bit, but, obviously he can still get it done. You kind of talked about the receivers. It doesn't help that he doesn't have a vertical threat, but I don't know if he can really get it vertically down the field anyway. They had Josh Gordon. He's now gone. So it's really guys like Julian Edelman and Mohamed Sanu. There's really not much to work with there in New England.
I think they've been relying a lot more on the running backs this year. You've seen Sonny Michel get at least 20 carries a game. You see James White getting around 10 touches, and they've been using Burkhead and all those other guys. But I mean, you can definitely see now that Gronk's gone, the effect that had not only the receiving game but also the run blocking game. Thankfully for the Eagles, the one strong suit we do have is stopping running backs. So I mean, that's something I think we do match up well with them, but. Obviously, we're going to have to get pressure because although they're not the great deep threats, there are very shifty, elusive wide receivers with Sanu and Edelman that you can't really just, you can't count on us to just, cover them for like 5-6 seconds.
Without a doubt. And I think it's also important that this is not a great offensive line that New England has either. In years past, this offensive line has been much better, and they had a lot of injuries. They lost their starting center before the season even began. Tackle situation has not been great there for New England, so that obviously affects a lot of things. But, as my good friend Burt Reynolds just laid out for us here, they're killing you underneath, man. I mean, they have a whole bunch of guys that are going to be able to give you death by 1,000 paper cuts underneath. And Brady traditionally is smart enough with the ball to, not push it down the field and take chances.
Yeah, the death by 1,000 paper cuts is all about ball placement. And that's what Tom Brady is literally putting the ball on the proper shoulder each and every time. It looks boring when we're watching it, a little 4-yard dink pass or a hitch pass, but that's what Tom Brady's game is at 42 years old. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's literally the best way to describe it, Brendan. That's so perfectly said. It really is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. No, it really is. All right, so I want to get into some other things. Let's talk about the Eagles' wide receiver position specifically, since we didn't do a show last week and we had an unfortunate injury. Well, continues to be injured with Deshaun Jackson, so now out for the season. So they bring in Jordan Matthews. What are your thoughts? Just, I guess, open-ended question. Yeah, it kind of sucks the fact that Deshaun got hurt again after the trade deadline happened, because unfortunately they couldn't really sign anybody. I mean, I was fine with Jordan Matthews. I never thought Antonio Brown was realistic, and he's the guy that knows the playbook. So I thought that was a pretty easy decision to make.
Deshaun Jackson in for one series was already more productive than Matt Collins has been the last 5 games. One catch. And no penalty yards either, which is always great. But like you said, we kind of talked about it earlier in the season. We never really had a contingency plan for Djax. That's why I was kind of like, why not take a low round flyer on some speed receiver just in case Deshaun can't stay healthy the rest of the year? Because, we're talking about it potentially being a lingering injury since he was putting off surgery anyway. So even if he did come back and didn't get hurt, there were still going to be questions whether or not he could be, stay healthy the rest of the year. So I still think, it's kind of tough not bringing anyone in. But as far as post-deadline guys who are available, Jordan Matthews does make a lot of sense. I mean, he's not going to be a deep threat, but he's someone that can get open, and more importantly, Wentz trusts him, and he'll catch. He'll drop some passes, but he'll at least catch the ball. He'll at least make some sort of impact towards our offense, which Matt Collins has not done anything in the last 4 or 5 games. So I mean, it's an addition, but it's a minor addition. And at this point, I mean, we'll take it. I mean, like he has the chemistry, he knows the offense. It made sense. I mean, I still want to be opposed to trying like Mark and Michelle or Greg Ward or giving someone else a shot. But as far as a short-term fix, I mean, it made a lot of sense to bring Chain Matt back.
It was the safest move, and sometimes the safest move is the best move. For everything you guys talked about there, you can kind of have him hit the ground running. And the reality is here, folks, if there was anyone out there that was worth being an instant impact player, they wouldn't be free agents halfway through the season. And as much as I like Jordan Matthews, I think he's like a ham sandwich. It's fine. Everything about him is just solid and fine and bland. And that's not supposed to be a nasty thing. But the reality is, fellas, there's a reason this is his 3rd stint with the Eagles. There's a reason it's been 3 times that we keep seeing him come back and then gone and come back and come back. And it's because he's bland. And that's not a bad thing, because the reality is the rest of the receivers are just bad. So why not bring him in? But like you guys talked about, there's no one else out there. It's after the deadline. You didn't make a move on Josh Gordon and waivers, so you have no other options. The only other option is if you want to go Antonio Brown, who, by the way, has no idea how to cut a potato, which was frightening to me as a human. But then again, I guess if you have that much money, you probably don't do normal things like I do every day. But I just don't have a problem with it. But I also think, guys, we need to temper anyone who's thinking, oh, he's going to be a savior. No, there's a reason it's his 3rd time here.
You know what he's going to do? He's going to give you like maybe 2 more catches a game because Matt Collins didn't give you any. So he'll catch like 2 balls for 20 yards a game, and that's his production. Maybe he gets you a key 3rd down a game. That's what he's going to do.
I'm still big on that. I think we should give our second Whiteside a shot. I mean,
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm seeing it. See, Matt. All right. So I got the nuggets. I got a bunch of nuggets here that I've been using for the radio. So I'll just kind of share them. I got the piece of paper in front of me. So Matt Collins had 10 catches for 125 yards after 4 games. Like Skolsky said, hasn't recorded a catch since. He's only been targeted 4 times. And then you have Nelson Aguilar, who only has 114 yards since week 4. So those 2 guys have really been disappointing, especially Aguilar to me, because of what he did 2 years ago. So Deshaun is out, and he's not stepping up. Now, who is stepping up? Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. So what you're seeing essentially is a shift. Your top receivers are not wide receivers. They are tight ends and running backs.
Correct.
So Miles Sanders has 201 yards in his last 5 games. He has 16 receptions. Dallas Goedert has 178 yards his last 4 games. So these are the guys who are really producing instead of the guys like Aguilar and Hollins. And it's masking the wide receiver depth a little bit. But the problem is you don't have a guy who can get deep. And that's what Deshaun Jackson brought you. And that's why we were talking about potentially bringing Robbie Anderson in before we figured out how much he would potentially cost.
Yeah, and since we're giving some young guys some shout-outs, let's talk about Andre Dillard. Pretty much, held his own against, he's
been looking good since like those first 2 games. He's been really good.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's definitely question marks later in the draft, but it looks like, our first 2 picks were, major impacts and could be cornerstone players. So let's give him a quick shout out. And the offensive line in general, Brandon Brooks with that contract extension.
We're going to talk about him next.
Okay,
We'll talk about him right now.
Let's do it.
All right. You want to lead off with what your segue had, or just we keep going?
I didn't really have a segue. I was just going to say, he got a 4-year extension. He's now the highest paid guard in the NFL, making $14.05 million. And I think the most astonishing thing to me is the fact that not only is he back less than a year from the Achilles tendon, it's the fact that he's looked like the best fucking guard in the NFL, and he's coming off an Achilles tear. This is unbelievable. This is like unprecedented to see him playing like this. You can make the argument that he has been the MVP of the team so far. That's how good he's been.
I mean, Achilles injuries are no joke. I mean, that's usually something that, you're usually not the same for almost a full, not even like more than a full calendar year. So, I mean, for him to come back, hurt it in the playoff game against the Bears, I believe it was, to come back in time for week 1 and be
the Saints game it happened.
Saints game. Sorry, to come back. That's even later. It's a week later.
Yeah.
To come back and not only be productive, but be the best right guard in the NFL. That's like ridiculous. I mean, I think he's a shoo-in for comeback player of the year. But I mean, and that's insane to even just be able to even come back at any capacity is amazing. To come back at an all-pro level, probably arguably better than he was last year. That's absolutely incredible. And I think Howie Roseman did the right thing. Lock him up now. The salary cap's going to go up, and you don't wait to sign blue chip players. You sign them as quickly as you can because the price only goes up.
Without a doubt. And I think I'm so tired of this narrative of, oh, well, guards are less valuable than tackles. Who gives a shit? If you're a good offensive lineman, draft them and pay them, because in the end of the day, everyone knows the most important position is the quarterback. Your quarterback typically makes about 20 to 25% of your annual salary or your annual expenses, right? Well, quarterbacks are only good if they're protected here. You don't want to happen what the Indianapolis Colts were doing for years and drafting a 7-on-7 team and never drafting anyone in the trenches. So I'm happy from an NFL perspective looking down to see Brooks get paid. I was thrilled when everyone's looking and saying, hey, this Quentin Nelson guy, he's really changed the way the Colts are working. Yeah, who cares? Good offensive lineman or good offensive lineman. So, guys, you said it perfectly. Brandon Brooks is out here balling right now, which is fantastic. And that's good for the NFL. It's good for evaluators because this narrative of, oh, well, let's draft a tackle over a guard. Whoever's a better player, draft them. Don't overthink this.
Well, let's also keep in mind that defensive tackles now are getting after the quarterback more than ever. Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox last year, 10-plus sacks. So guards are more important than ever, especially in pass protection. Brandon Brooks has not allowed a single sack this year. Hasn't allowed a sack in I think he's only – actually, the number is 1 sack allowed in 49 games, which is ridiculous. Like, wow, that's 3 seasons worth of sackage, just nothing. And then what he's doing in the running game. And I have an interesting question here because New England is known for taking away your best offensive weapon. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do because I think the Eagles' best offensive weapon is Brandon Brooks. But I think that the Patriots don't know this, and they might actually try to double-team Zach Ertz instead. I don't know. We'll see what they try and do because I think they have to stop the run first and foremost before anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's like what we said, one of the reasons we wanted some of the stretch the field is because now they can kind of just keep that, the extra safety inside, focus on the running game, focus on, the middle of the field. You're not really too afraid about our outside receivers burning you deep. So in that way, I feel like we're a little limited, but like you said, they have been struggling against the run. So we can, if our defense can hold and we can get the run game going, I think we have a good chance. But yeah, I mean, Brandon Brooks, especially when you have the power backs and with Jordan Howard and we have someone elusive, he's creating those giant holes for Miles Sanders. You've seen both his running backs benefit tremendously from not only his play, but our whole offensive line play pretty much this year. Only one that's really been kind of up and down has been Sayamalu, but he's even been stepping up recently, I think.
I hear you. I hear your point, Adrian. I get what you're saying, but let me just give you some numbers here, fellas. 123, 49, 127, 176, 84, 108, 115, 218, and then 146. That's a good rushing offense, but it's not an elite rushing offense. And what I mean by that is Coach P hasn't shown the consistency of being that committed to the run. So if I'm the Patriots and I'm planning a defensive game plan to the Eagles, I haven't seen the Eagles offense be that consistent and rock steady about running the ball week in and week out. So for that reason, yeah, I'm going to focus more on Zach Ertz, especially because I'm more confident we're going to be able to put points up on the Eagles because I have Tom Brady, period. Nothing against the Eagles. It's the fact that I have Tom Brady. So I'm always going to be more concerned about stopping the pass, except when you play a team like Baltimore that runs the ball consistently 50+% of the game. The Eagles don't do that or haven't shown that yet. So for me, if I'm planning the defense, Adrian, I buy what you're selling of how good Brooks is and that you really want to focus on the run. But I haven't seen a large enough sample size for me to be able to say they're definitely going to do this. And more importantly, I haven't seen enough that makes me say we're going to all of a sudden have to win a low-scoring game. No, we're the Patriots. We can win out high-scoring games all day.
To be fair, Brendan, with our rushing offense, I mean, you saw our team. We've been down,
Sure.
three, double digits, almost. I was at the 4 in the first 5 games. We've been playing from behind almost the whole year. The last few games, we finally got to dictate it, and I think that's when we've been establishing it. But I mean, the Patriots are a team that can jump ahead of you too. So I mean, there's a lot. I guess there's a lot to say.
Like, yeah, you can't let them get up 10-14-0 so that you stop running the football. So,
correct.
The point that you made, they're not showing this consistency in running the football. But the last 2 weeks they have. It's only 2 weeks though.
I hear you. All I'm going to say is against the Falcons, you had 49 yards rushing. Against the Jets, you had 84 yards rushing.
Granted, we were still trying to figure out who the number 1 back was. So Jordan Howard has now established himself as the lead guy. You're not buying this. It's okay. He was third. So they had 36 rush attempts last week, 41 the week prior. They are 4-1 when they run the ball 30 or more times. Now, obviously, that record indicates also the fact that when you're playing ahead, you're obviously going to run the ball.
Sure.
But still, 4-1 when they run it 30+ times.
I hear you. I hear everything you're saying. All I'm saying is if you can't run the ball against the Jets and the Falcons, I'm not exactly fearful of your run game. I know you did it really well against the Bears.
Over the Bears.
I know, but I'm just saying I have seen a larger sample size that says the Eagles want to throw the ball over the yard more, even though the reality is they should run the ball more.
Okay. Skolsky, anything else?
I mean, the Falcons game was kind of like a wash. I mean, we got down. I mean, that's when we lost half our offense, in the pregame warmups, which I've never seen before in my life. Yeah, stretching we somehow, Philadelphia doctors. But, we can't, they're not pretty much when it comes down to it, the Patriots aren't the Redskins. If we go down 3 scores, we're not going to come back.
No.
So we got to establish the run early. Our defense needs to make some stops early. We got to keep it close or pull ahead 1 of the 2, because if they pull ahead, they're not the Falcons defense. They're not the Redskins defense. Right. It's not Josh Allen at QB. They're not going to turn the ball over that often on offense. We can't make mistakes. Simple as that.
Yep. All right, let's do predictions now. So Eagles and Patriots, obviously big one here on Sunday. We will start with Mike Skolsky. Who you got?
I'm on the fence because I think we need to split one of these next 2 games, and I'm on the fence of which one I want to pick. I think I'm going to pick. I think I'm going to pick the Eagles this game. I think I'm going to go. What I want to do is score 24-21. Last second field goal.
I thought you were about to pick the same score as me for a 3rd time this year. You were close.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be that high scoring of a game. I think it's gonna be a lot of running on both sides of the field. I mean, both teams, excuse me. And I'm more worried about if I had to pick. Like I said, I think we're gonna split these next 2 games. If anything, I'm worried about with the Eagles' defense is stopping a mobile quarterback. Tom Brady's not that.
Sure isn't.
So we got that. You see us getting pressure on the QB, but we always pretty contained. But I'm not worried with that with Tom Brady. Coming off a bye week and being at home, 4:00 game. Doug Peterson coaches aggressively against no matter who he's facing. I'll take us to this game, and then I'll probably pick us to lose next week unless they really show me something this week.
Yeah.
3.5 points is what Vegas says, and they have the Patriots favored by 3.5.
This is lock city for the Eagles, baby.
Man, here's the thing, though.
8% of the public is on the Eagles. That's a good thing.
And the thing you also know, Adrian, is typically Vegas gives you about 1.5 to 2 points when you're the favorite.
Yes.
Man, this is a tough one for me.
Yeah, it's tough.
I will take the Pats. I just have a hard time going against New England losing back-to-back games. Sometimes it's as simple as that. You know what I mean? And I do believe that actually matchups are very, very favorable. There's not a ton that frightens me, except for that guy that wears number 12 in New England. So it's hard for me to bet against that guy losing 2 games in a row. I like where your head's at, Skolsky. I'm going to go 27-20. I think it is a low-scoring game, but I have a hard time betting against the boys from New England losing back-to-back games.
Fair.
Yeah, so the over-under on this is 46. So we're kind of like in that ballpark. You're at 20. You're at 47. Skolsky was at 45. I am at 44. I got 24-20, and I got the Eagles. So I think this matchup is more favorable for the Eagles than the Seahawks because of what Skolsky mentioned, Russell Wilson being elusive. And it also seems like the Seahawks defense is playing a little bit better than they were, especially against the run. We'll see, obviously, next week about that. But for this one, I think the Eagles are going to win it. And the last time the Eagles played the Patriots, they handed them a second loss in a row, if you remember, in Foxborough. So it has happened before. It has. Eagles going to win this game, baby. And then after that, I don't know. But I think they win this one. I think they match up well. We'll see about Tom Brady and how the Eagles can get after him because that's obviously a big thing. You got to get after Tom Brady. I don't know if they're going to on a consistent basis, but I got them winning this game. So there's that.
If the Eagles win this game, it's because Fletcher Cox has more than 2.5 sacks. That's the number that I'll set down here because this offensive line is not great. As I talked about earlier, Patriots offensive line, meh. They lost their center at the start of the year. Shaq Mason's is typically pretty good, but the rest of the offensive line is average. Marshall Newhouse hasn't been having a great year. Unfortunately, a guy that I really like coming out of Georgia, their offensive lineman, he's not healthy again. So I think it has to be 2.5 sacks from Fletcher Cox. That's the magic number for the Eagles to win this game.
Penetration. All right, so we're going to look at some comments now.
Love it.
Let me make one bold prediction. I want to go Josh Sweat with 2 sacks this game.
Ooh, I love that. Love it.
I like that.
You're set on the table, Skull Man.
I like that, like Kirk. I like it.
That's just my bold prediction. It's probably not going to happen, but it wouldn't be bold if I went small. So
yeah.
All right,
Get
so we're going to look at some stuff now. Nitro Freak chimes in. Vegas automatically gives you -3 as home team. The Pats are given a 6-point swing. Not good. So here's where I'm going to explain to you guys something that I know about sports betting, and I think Brendan's about to agree with me. So look at the betting public and the percentage of the population that is going with a certain team. So here's kind of the general rule, all right? If the public is on less than 20% of a certain team, you bet on the 20%. 8% right now are betting for the Eagles. That means 92% of the money is on New England right now. If you are less than 6, if you are less than 6 points at home as a home dog, and you're less than the 20%, there's a very good chance that you're going to cover this game. That's what Vegas says. Brendan, have you heard it? You've heard about that, correct? You know more about odds than I do.
As someone who pays taxes to these fine buildings here in Las Vegas, yes, I can echo Adrian. Everything you said there is true. I mean, the other thing I'll add in here, and thank you, Nitro, I agree. I've heard every different casino is a little bit different. Some places will go 1.5. Some places go all the way up to 3. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. I'm a big fan of William Hill. That's just my personal betting preference. Mm-hmm. But the biggest line and the biggest thing I've always taken away is Vegas sets a line that they win money on both sides no matter what happens here.
Yep. All right, so we're going to look at Crazy Steve. And we kind of talked about this earlier in the show. Winner of 12-22 game versus Cowboys will win the division at 10-6. Loser goes home at 9-7. Collision course with Dallas, very clear. I would also agree that. I also think that the winner of this division is going to be how you get into the playoffs, because you're not going to get a wild card, especially now looking at Seattle with only 2 losses. They won on Monday night.
And Minnesota.
You got the Vikings and the Packers in the NFC North. So you're going to have to beat Dallas at home to win the division, and we'll see. I mean, I do think Dallas has the tougher schedule, so maybe by that point, Eagles are far enough ahead that maybe they do win the division by default. But obviously, most likely, you're looking at that, and you're going to have to win that game.
I agree. I mean, even when we looked at the schedule from the beginning of the year, we kind of had that second Dallas game saying, oh, it looks like, more than likely the division's going to come down to that. And I think we talked about it earlier. They kind of had the easier schedule to start. We have the easier schedule to finish for sure. I mean, I don't want to say cakewalk because I'm never going to take any divisional opponents for granted. Maybe the Redskins, but I wouldn't take the Giants. They saw some talent. I mean, Jones has been slinging it a little bit. He's been inconsistent, but he has shown some flashes. So there's always games we should win. I'm not going to say we will win, but there's a bunch of games we should win in the second half where you see that Dallas has their tougher opponents remaining, and hopefully we're one of those guys too.
I'm starting to get scared of Miami. Like, what are the Dolphins doing? Why are they winning?
I said this on my podcast last night that I do this segment. I do it called like Best Mondays, Worst Mondays, right? And my worst Monday was Dolphins fans. Like by far, it's just the Dolphins fans, not the Dolphins. The Dolphins fans. That's the worst case scenario for you.
Oh my God! How can you win twice in a row?
Not only that, I think so they have 3 first-round picks in the team, including them. So including them, the last 2 weeks, all 3 of the teams won both games.
Yep.
Pretty much worst case scenario for them.
Yep.
All right. We got a comment here from Bunzology talking about the Pats' offensive line pretty much crap. If the DBs can hold up to mid-deep, our D-line gets the Brady. Well, here's the thing. It's Tom Brady gets the ball out so quick. That's the issue, the quick 3-step drop that he has. So in some ways, it doesn't even matter sometimes how bad your offensive line is when you have Tom Brady out there getting the ball out as quickly as he can. But as we've seen in the Super Bowl, that is the recipe to get after Brady. With D-line, got to get after him, collapse the pocket.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it there. I mean, he's going to get the ball out quick. He has a very shifty wide receivers that can, break out the line.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw, was it Cole Beasley, the Bills game, at the line to shake Sidney Jones out of his boots. So, I mean, their offensive line isn't great. So this will be a great time for, as Brandon said, Fletcher Cox to make a statement, show that he's fully back. But Brady's not someone you want to blitz against, and we haven't been that good at blitzing either. So a lot's going to come down to our defensive line against our offensive line. I'll agree on that.
Yep, the Pats personnel plays into this because I don't disagree with anything that our comment here says. Hey, yeah, Brady's not trying to go up top on you, so that's kind of like a win-win. If you want to play off coverage, Brady's just going to be like, oh, okay, that's actually what I want you to do. So this gets a little bit of a matchup situation, right? Because Coach Schwartz likes to play off, likes to play a lot of coverage 3, cover 4 stuff, which Brady's like, okay, I'll take the free money. I'll take the underneath stuff and give you the death by 1,000 paper cuts. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to change, as the game goes on, because when it starts this way, which it will, that's what the Patriots want to do, does Jim Schwartz change things up?
All right, we're going to take one more comment here from Brandon. He's asking, I guess he's kind of saying here more than asking, Howard needs to be extended and they should J-Jaw as a deep threat, try him out. So Jordan Howard extension talk, you know what, at this point, I wouldn't hate it. If they give him like a 2-year deal, I don't know how much he's going to cost, but I wouldn't be opposed to it at this point. He looks good out there.
In theory, I agree. I mean, it really depends on the numbers. I mean, Howie Roseman's never going to give a giant contract to a running back, and that's just what it is.
And it would come down to if Jordan would want to come back because he may get a bigger deal somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a great year for us. I could see him wanting to hit the open market and trying to cash in, and I wouldn't blame him for that. But, I mean, if he says, hey, I like it in Philadelphia, I'll sign a team-friendly deal, then it would definitely make sense to bring him back because even as a rotational piece, as the power back, he's someone that definitely has a role in this offense. Even if Miles Sanders does break out and be the real deal running back, I mean, there's still a place for a guy like Jordan Howard here. As far as J-Jaw, he's more of a possession guy than like a deep threat. I do agree that we should try him out in the offense. There's nothing that he's someone we see as a future of our receiving core, a future piece at least. And with that being our weakest unit on offense, it would make sense to give that younger guy a shot, I would think, over someone like Matt Collins. But for whatever reasons, they haven't been. I know they talked about how Matt Collins was Deshaun's backup and Jay Jaw was Alshon's backup, but now their wide receiver coach is coming out and saying that they're comfortable with Jay Jaw playing all 3 wide receiver positions now. So there's really no excuse for him not to be out there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have most agreements here. Look, Howard's more than played his fair value with that trade, right? I mean, we look back with the trade he got, it was like, yep, worth it, done deal, right? Win-win for both sides here, because obviously Chicago didn't need him because they're not running the ball. But anyway, that's a good situation. If you want to give him a short-term extension, yeah, I got no beef with it. I mean, as Skolsky talked about, numbers always are going to determine the end of the day. But the reality is, guys, most of these NFL contracts, majority of it's written on toilet paper because it can quickly get wiped up and thrown away, So whatever the numbers are, it's fine. I'm sure that's going to be a good move for them. Because even if you get Miles Sanders to be the full-time load type of guy, how many teams actually use one running back? Almost none. So why not, bring him in here? And if you want to make Howard do all the ugly and nasty stuff, that's great. It's going to save hits on Miles Sanders' body in the long run. So I love it. As far as J-Jaw here, look, you drafted him. You got to give him a shot. I mean, whether you think he sucks or you think he's awesome, that's up to you. But you have to give him a shot. The worst thing you can do is have this world of potential around a guy, because that means he hasn't done shit yet, but you think he might. You got to make a decision. It's a piss or get off the pot situation. If he's not good, that's fine. But you got to give him every opportunity. So if that means giving him shots in the slot, getting vertical, doing short game, intermediate, you have to give him a chance. And if he's not good, he's not good. But you got to make sure you give him the chance so you don't keep wondering the what if type of stuff. That's what drives you nuts.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when you got Matt Collins, who, again, hasn't caught a ball since week 5, give him a shot. Like, something's got to change.
Yep.
Even if it's calling up somebody from the practice squad, like you said earlier too, Skolsky with Greg Ward. I mean, something. So, all right, that's the end here. Brennan has to leave, so we're going to do final thoughts right now. We're going to exit.
I mean, it's a big game. Like I said, we have, we beat the Bears and Bills, who are great defenses but questionable offenses. This will be a real litmus test these next 2 weeks. I mean, the season isn't done if we lose these both, but it makes it a lot harder. And it kind of, if we lose both of these, especially badly, then it's kind of a bad omen for the rest of our year. But if we win, we win both these games, I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Oh, great.
I'm feeling very good about it.
If they win, I'm going to start getting crazy on this channel.
Yeah, but I'm going to probably go somewhere in the middle. I think we're going to split the games, but I mean, there's still a lot to do. And I also like to say farewell. This will probably be the only week you guys see me with a mustache. So happy Movember to all you guys out there.
I know. This is unfortunate. You look magnificent, by the way, with that mustache. I think you should keep it full time.
My wife would divorce me, but
oh, well, you know what? That's okay. You can have me.
I'm going with a dad stash, November. So I mean, just preparing.
Dude, it looks fucking awesome. It really does. It came in great.
I will be sad to see Charlie Chaplin no longer be joining us here, but it is good to see you doing something for a good cause. On a serious note, there, Skolsky. My final notes here is: look, I get it. 2.5 sacks, that's a bold number for Fletcher Cox. But the reality is the only way you beat quick passing teams is interior pressure, not typically exterior. So you have to put a little more emphasis on the interior pass rush. Fortunately, the best defensive lineman for the Eagles plays on the inside. So that's why I put that number out there. I love the idea of Bennett, Sweat, Jernigan, any of those guys getting pressure on the outside, but it's still going to be one on the inside here if you beat Brady. So that's kind of what I have here. I agree with you. I think this is a split situation, but I'm going to put a selfless plug in here. We are 1 week closer, fellas, to the draft. We're 1 week closer where my Christmas comes together, and I know I'm a loser here. This is my favorite time of year. Yes, I actually like the draft more than the Super Bowl and the playoffs. I'm 100% a loser, but I can't wait.
And arguably the best wide receiver class probably since like 2010. So
yes,
and Jeremiah said it today. So we're going to be doing a lot of wide receivers this summer, or this spring, I should say. This spring, yeah. So
no, we can do it right now. I'm ready to go right now. I'm ready whenever.
Just start running down all the wide receivers. All right, we're doing CeeDee Lamb tomorrow. That's what we're doing.
Done. Love it.
All right, my final thought. I'm going to go bold. If the Eagles win this game, they're not losing again. Rest of the year. There's my bold prediction. Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots, 2 best teams in November and December since 2012. No more. Eagles are unbeaten, not losing again. Now we need to end the show because I'm getting too nuts. That's Brendan Albert, Gardner Minshew, Skolsky, as Brendan was sliding down this.
I know. If we win these next 2 weeks, then maybe I'll jump on that board. But
I'm going there right now. If they win, because I'm seeing something with the running game. Now Brendan isn't there yet because he hasn't seen it consistently. But if they run the ball down the Patriots' throats, this is a 3rd straight week where they're pounding the rock on an opposing team at will, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. I'm going to start getting excited. If
Deshaun was healthy, I'd maybe even jump on that. But I mean, we're still seeing those limitations on an offense. We're still having to be that slow, methodical offense.
They are scoring. They are
scoring now.
They're scoring very efficiently though, because they're not playing 12 possession games. They're playing like 8 to 10. And they are scoring touchdowns at, not a high level, but it's better than it was. And the defense is coming around. So running game, it's all going to come down to the offensive line and Jordan Howard. And that's really where it is for the rest of the year. And that's what I believe. So there it is. That's it for the show. We're done. I already said bye to you guys. And you got to go, Brendan. So we're out. Peace.
Well, take it easy, guys.
Say it. Okay. See you later, guys.